Be sure to subscribe to WXOU Sports on YouTube. WXOU Sports is the place to be for all things sports from your favorite college radio station. WXOU Sports features live audio broadcasts of all Oakland University home games, including men's and women's basketball. They also feature interviews with athletes and coaches, with highlights and more. Just go to YouTube and search WXOU Sports and hit subscribe. Now, back to the show. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the GioMoShow, your home for all Oakland University Golden Grizzlies sports. My name is Giovanni Moscieri, reminding you to rate, review, and subscribe to the GioMoShow for weekly coverage of the Oakland Golden Grizzlies with the audio brought to you by 88.3 FM WXOU, where you can listen to the GioMoShow on all audio platforms from where the show began at WXOU. So appreciate them allowing me to continue the show through their networks, through their airwaves. And you can also find the GioMoShow right here on YouTube at any place at any time. You can also find the GioMoShow on Instagram at the GioMo Show, as well as on Twitter at GioMoScieri, WXOU. And today we'll have some shout outs for other sports at the very end, but you know how it is for this part of the year. It's all basketball for our coverage here of the GioMoShow. We missed last week, and I apologize for that, but scheduling and other stuff got into the way of the full episode, but luckily Harsh Buttar was happy enough to be on the show and be last week's guest, breaking down the Youngstown State game for men's basketball that he was on the call for on WXOU through their YouTube channel, WXOU Sports, which once again, you should go and subscribe to for free broadcasts of Oakland sports. But missed a little bit of it last week, so we'll do a brief recap of what we missed, but obviously we'll focus it onto what we saw this week for both men's and women's basketball. Business as usual here on the GioMoShow. And keep an eye out for this week, another special guest interview that's going to be coming out earlier this week. Luckily, we have a little bit more time to get it done, as the next men's game won't be until Friday when they go on the road to Purdue Fort Wayne. So keep an eye out and subscribe to the GioMoShow on YouTube and all platforms to be sure to get my weekly interview covering this past week. It'll be the IU Indy and Detroit Mercy of the two games this week that we'll be covering with that guest interview. But for what we missed last week, obviously we'll start with men's basketball as we've been doing, is their home game against Youngstown State, a really rough way to celebrate Kay Felder night, where they fell 84-75 to the Youngstown State Penguins, who have been doing well for themselves ever since. So that game was last week, and they've been doing pretty well for themselves, now up to fourth place in the Horizon League after digging themselves out of that middle pack in the middle of the season. They're starting to fight for that top four spot. So had an off night against them, and we'll say 13 turnovers in the first half. I'll save my summary for it. If you guys really want to go see it, you can check out my conversation with Harj. But basically 13 turnovers in the first half, and the game was pretty much out of reach. We just couldn't do what we do best. We couldn't control the ball. We couldn't do free throws. And Youngstown State was just having a great night. So that one was a total bummer, and we needed to clean some things up in that next game. That would be last Wednesday on the road against IU Indy, where things were very clean and very cleaned up for Oakland. This one, a total shift from what they showed in their past two home games against NKU and Youngstown State, winning this one on the road in the jungle 82-67. And this game, I was watching it live, and it looked like right away that Youngstown State was going to do everything that their scouting report would indicate and do it well. Shoot the three. That's what the Jaguars have done best. They came into this one the third best three-point shooting team in the league, and they started off 4 for 4 from deep. And we were down by 6, and I'm like, oh, shoot. This is not going to go well, because what I was worried with the Jaguars is that if we let them get hot from 3, we can't match that from 3. We're dead last in the league in three-point shooting, both in overall and in conference play. We don't even shoot 30% for the season, so we are not going to be able to match IU Indy's three-point shooting if we let them get hot. So that when they did get hot, I was like, uh-oh. However,
we had an unbelievable three-point shooting night ourselves and a great offensive night as a whole. So all was forgiven for that rough start as Oakland, within the first 10 minutes, would start to close that gap. IU Indy's lead would be no more. And after Oakland goes up by 1 point in the 11th minute, or at 11 minutes in the first half, the score was 22-21. And then Oakland would go on a 17-5 run to gain a 12-point lead and gain pretty good control of the game. Now, after that 12-point lead, it would get within 4 a few minutes before halftime, and once again a few minutes after halftime. But Oakland was still both hands on the wheel, control of the game throughout, and a huge, huge factor in that, and he will be a huge factor in the next game we talk about against Detroit as well. Freshman Nassim Mashhour out of Dearborn. He comes out with a career high at the time shooting night, offensive night, and it was most of the three-point offense for Oakland, and he was just incredible. 18 points for an at-the-time career high. He was 5 of 7 from deep. It was a whole lot of three-point shooting going on in that game. 6 of 10 overall from the field. And it was pretty pure on offense. He did this all in only 23 minutes and not even starting. Did it off the bench with that 18 points. And that was part of a huge advantage Oakland had. 26-0 in terms of bench points. Nassim having 18 of those 26 bench points, but 0 from IU Indy. So I thought that one was strange. But what was even stranger than that when we talk about the stats of this game is that IU Indy was out rebounding Oakland for most of the game. It wasn't until garbage time the last few minutes where Oakland was able to barely get the edge in rebounding, but offensive rebounding, that's Oakland's specialty. Oakland was second best in the league in offensive rebounds, and they gave up 20 to IU Indy. It was 20-10 in offensive rebounds in favor of the Jaguars. So that one was just really strange, but with the way the game was going, with the way the offense was playing, not really a big deal. We still were able to win it by, how much would that be? 15. So no harm, no foul. Oakland gets the win on the road. As mentioned, Mashhour, 18 points. That led the Golden Grizzlies. Mukeba would have 14 and 6 in that game, a perfect 5 of 5 from the field, and Baru would not be far behind. A 13 and 10 double-double with 4 assists, 3 blocks, and a steal. And another 13 points from Isaiah Jones. He was also perfect, 5 of 5 from the field, made a three-pointer as well, 6 rebounds, 2 assists as well. And DQ would be the 5th Golden Grizzly to get to 10 points in this game. He would have 10 on a pretty average shooting night for him. 4 of 12 from the field and 2 of 9 from 3. I shouldn't say average, but I mean from the way the season's been going, it's probably close to it. But either way, 5 Golden Grizzlies in double digits against the Jaguars, shooting 54.7% from the field and 44% from 3, making 75% of our free throws as well. As far as Oakland goes, that is huge. That is sharp shooting for us, especially we started 60% from 3 in the first half, dropped down to 25 to average that 44 for the whole game, but that was really what we needed. And yeah, I knew that game wasn't going to come easy because IU Indy ain't that bad. IU Indy, the turnaround they've had, I mean, yeah, are they going to win the league? Well, probably not, but you get 1 year turnaround with a whole lot of University of Indianapolis from Division II coming into that program with the head coach and their top 3 players. You turn the worst program in the country around in 1 year, relatively, that ain't easy. And that team was really good, and they have some of the best players in the league individually. So it was not going to be a cakewalk, but cake was had against the Jaguars as they defeated them 82-67. And then that leads us to Sunday, as Oakland would face Detroit in a game that put me to sleep in the first few minutes, man. It was sluggish to get things started in that game. And, maybe I was a little bit tired, but any sporting event that makes you more tired, yeah, that one is going to end up pretty rough. But this one ended up turning into an instant classic. I agree with what the social media team put for this game. This game is an instant classic. Giving some background for the previous game this season, where Detroit is in the same shoes as IU Indy, where they were literally two of the worst programs in the country. I think they want to combine like one game between the two of them, and that win or one or two wins was only between the two of them, something like that. They were god awful last year, and new coach, a lot of new players for Detroit, and it's like, hey, they're in much better shape than before. The 1 year, improvement has been crazy for them. And I give a lot of that credit for, play on the court, for recruiting, for vibes to Mark Montgomery. I'm a big fan of him. He's pretty cool in terms of the energy that he has on the sideline and the intensity that his players play in both of these rivalry games this year. The talent is not there to get the win, as Oakland record-wise is still dominating the rivalry, but the intensity of it and the play on the court and the experience of it, that is what is bringing the rivalry back, and this game was a great example of it. On the blacktop, after it was pretty much a slugfest. Teams are going back and forth, and they were climbing up one possession at a time with each other. Detroit got some pretty good runs on us, and they were holding us to our typical scoring droughts, and they actually had the lead at the halftime, 42-40, and they didn't just barely made it there. Oakland was the one closing the gap there. Is I'll have to take another look at the numbers, but Detroit was well ahead at certain points in this game, and then that's where it became that slugfest. And I'm going off just, I didn't have it in my necessarily my script, but I'm going off of the game notes that I had while I was watching. The big thing with this game when it comes to halftime. So once again, it was 42-40, Detroit lead at halftime. However, when you do the math and you see that Oakland had 25 free throw attempts in that first half, you start doing the numbers and you're like, wait a minute, 20 of 25 free throws and you score 40 from the offensive side, from Oakland's offense, we scored 20 points in one half. That ain't good. And it was only because of Detroit Mercy's incredible fouling. Incredible is in a sense of quantity. That's the only reason we were in this game in the first half. And I was shocked. And I was, I was very shocked. I was very upset, surprised. I'm like, we can't lose this game at home. Not in this year of that Detroit program. Not in that first year. It's like, we got to get the sweep on this. We don't have any room for error. We're probably fighting for at least the 5th or 6th spot, and then it just becomes a favorable matchup for the first round of the tournament, because I'll be honest, I don't really know about top 4 at this point, but we need this game. So I was very concerned at halftime, and that it kind of got cleared up a little bit in that second half, but still the damage was done. 20 free throws, and Oakland's in this. And then the fighting began. Not literal fighting, although sometimes it got chippy. But then that's where it would climb one after another, and especially in the last few minutes where everything was within one possession, scoring was in the 60s. Oakland was the one that had to make the tie to get it to overtime, because this game went into overtime in fantastic fashion. And at 1:42 left in the game, 1:42 seconds, it would be a 75-73 Detroit lead that they got off a 7-0 run with a minute over that previous minute and 40 seconds. So Detroit was the one that had the momentum at the end of the game. Nassim Mashhour would get fouled with the chance to tie the game with 2 free throws, but he would make only one of them. That still gives Detroit the lead, 75-74, with about a minute and a half to go. Then Baru fouls Orlando Lovejoy, giving Detroit 2 free throws that they made to now put the game at 3 points at 77-74 with less than a minute to go. Nassim Mashhour would miss a 3 that could have possibly tied it with 45 seconds left, and at 25 seconds, a timeout was called by Detroit, and it's a 3-point game. It's less than 30 seconds left to go. It's in the rivalry match. It's a game that Oakland needs where no breathing room is left in the Horizon League standings against, a team that's up and coming, a team that's scrappy, a team that despite shooting themselves in the foot with all the fouls, had a chance to win this game and to break that winning streak that Oakland has had against Detroit in recent time in this rivalry. And in that final few seconds, Isaiah Jones would get the steal, intercepting a pass and sprinting his way to the other side of the court with a wide open look at the basket. But he knew that the game was within 3 and there would not be time to get 2 field goals. This must be a 3-pointer. And now Isaiah Jones has in time shown the ability to step into a 3 and make them when necessary, but right next to him, he looks over to his left and he notices that DQ Cole is wide open on the left wing, ready for it. So Isaiah Jones pumps the brakes, turns around and gives it to him. And then DQ's the space to shoot shrinks, and as he's going up for his shot, he digs it over to Isaiah to try to get a second chance at it. And right away, Isaiah volleyballs it over, and then DQ gets that 3-point off on the left wing. Swish. The game is tied with 5 seconds left, 77 all, and that would be the score going into overtime. And just an amazing play. All the credit was given in the postgame from Greg Campy to Isaiah Jones for having that the down and distance. That's a phrase that he's been using all season long, to know the situation and know that you're better off giving it to DQ for this dagger 3. Or it would eventually be a dagger. Obviously, you tied it, but the awareness to be able to do that was widely praised throughout the coaching staff and the team and your local sports broadcaster as well. A ton of credit for that, especially in the rush of it, to keep the clear head and to make that right decision. But the game still wasn't over. Overtime still needed to be had, where Isaiah Jones would be fouled on another fast break, make both the free throws to get them the initial 2-point lead, and that was a lead that would not be let go as Oakland would cruise their way to a 10-point victory, outscoring the Titans. How would that math work out? Going from 77, you score 93. That is 16-6, outscoring the Detroit Titans 16-6. Yeah, that math works out for a 10-point win, 93-83 in the rivalry game. And that one, it started out, like I said, it started off a total snoozer, and then it ended up being an instant classic of a game. It was so much fun to watch, and it was a great game. No doubt. And we're taking a look at the box score here. Another career offensive day for Nassim Mashhour, but in a completely different way than how he did it in the previous game against IU Indy. IU Indy, he was 5 of 7 from 3. This game, he was 1 of 7 from 3, 5 of 11 overall from the floor, but the free throws is where he was able to shine. 13 out of 16 free throws for the freshman, giving him a new career high of 24 points, in addition to 4 rebounds and 2 assists and 2 steals in 38 minutes of play. He came off the bench but played like a starter in this game. In addition, Jalen Jones, 16 points, would be the second leading scorer on the Golden Grizzlies. Only 3 of 6 from the field, but 10 of 11 from the free throw line. So a lot of them coming in overtime as well, obviously where it's very critical. Along with a rebound, 3 assists, and 2 steals. Now Alan Mukeba would get his double-double. Once again, 13 and 10. He was 3 of 6 from the floor, but 7 of 14 from the free throw line for the big dude. 3 assists and a steal as well, as your box score highlights in this game against Detroit. And that one was a lot of fun to watch, no doubt. And now we take a look at the Horizon League men's basketball standings. It is Oakland at 9 and 7 in conference, 12 and 15 overall. They are at the 6th place spot, moving up a spot from last week at 7th place. Although Purdue Fort Wayne putting at least a 2-game, or how they, I think a 2.5 game. My record math is doing not so well, but Purdue Fort Wayne is the 5th place spot. They are 11-6, which is a shocker how far they've fallen ever since they were in 2nd place contending. One of the only teams that were competing with Cleveland State for the 1st place spot. It is now Youngstown and Robert Morris and Milwaukee that are kind of taking that place. Now, Purdue Fort Wayne's not that far away from it, but that top 5 is very crowded. All teams at least having 11 conference wins, the most being 11 or 12. Like that's the top 5. So that's getting very competitive. Oakland getting in that conversation is going to be a real long shot, but still getting up to the 6th place spot, separating ourselves from 7th place below us in Northern Kentucky is putting us in a pretty decent spot. Taking a look from Matt Dudek of the Horizon Roundtable, he tweeted out the statistics as to where each team is going to land in the Horizon League standings when it's all said and done, as I'll pull that up here on Twitter. And checking out that, it looks like the greatest chance for Oakland to finish is in the 6th place spot, a 61% chance to finish in that 6th place spot, a 16% chance to get into 5th, and you get into a 6% chance to get into the 4th spot. So not looking well. You go to maybe 15% at 7th place, 1% at 8th. So it's really looking like we're going to be at that 6th place spot, especially with where the standings are right now, where we're currently at 6th. So it looks like that might be where we'll land by the end of the season. But the pursuit of top 4, I think I'm going to call it early. I don't think we're going to get it. I think that the pursuit was lost in those home games against Youngstown State and Northern Kentucky, especially Northern Kentucky. Because, given how Youngstown State's been doing, I can understand taking the loss at home, but to do it against Northern Kentucky, man, that one is really going to be one that stings, because we'd be 10-6 otherwise if it wasn't for that game, and we'd be a half game behind Purdue Fort Wayne, who we play this Friday, so that could have been a chance to step up in that and potentially get a tiebreaker with Milwaukee, who we are yet to play our 2nd game against. Then the chances really open up for Oakland to get into the top 4, but Northern Kentucky just had it against us that night with a lot of their bench players, a lot of their players that don't typically shoot as well. They shot very well against us, so that just happened to be how the case is, and I think we're going to be hosting in the 1st round of the tournament, but going to be going on the road in the 2nd round. So you look at it, and maybe we get a home game, we just get it a week earlier, or either a week or a few days earlier than we normally would. I just want one more game in the arena, because after the Purdue Fort Wayne game on Friday, Sunday is where they'll be playing number 1 Cleveland State at home. That one's going to be senior night. I don't want that to be the last home game in the arena this season, just because I need my chance to get back there. I want to be there for the Horizon League tournament at the arena at least, and I just hope that it doesn't end into I wouldn't even say the sunset, but end in the arena that way. So that's going to wrap it up here on the GioMoShow portion for men's basketball. One last note is that Nassim Mashhour just recently announced as the Horizon League Freshman of the Week for his 2 career scoring days, 18 points against IU Indy, and then 24 against Detroit Mercy in the same week, back-to-back games. So Nassim Mashhour's a stud, dude. I love that kid. He's really been what Oakland's been lacking. You almost wish that we had him earlier in the season, where we're really starting to figure out getting the 3-point shooting, back from the dead. It would have been really nice to have a player like him in those times, but he's a freshman. It took time to get there, and better to have him now than never. So either way, it's just Nassim is a stud, and I always got a little affinity for being local, Dearborn, southeastern Michigan kind of area. I dig that. I think that's really cool. So that will move us on now to women's basketball, where I got nothing but bad news to report there. From last week where I missed it to this week now, it's rough. It is tough sledding for the Golden Grizzlies women's basketball team. So, because I am not a negative person, I'm not going to spend an eternity on these past 3 games, but they were bad. These 3 games were against the best in the Horizon League. We did not perform very well against any of them. In the past 3 games against Cleveland State, against Purdue Fort Wayne, then Cleveland State, and then Milwaukee, the worst team in the league, Oakland averaged 51 points per game. And I did the math for their season. After they started 4-0 in conference play for the first time in program history in the Horizon League, after that 4-0 start, we go 2-9 our next 11 games in the same pattern, with 1 win, 3 losses, 1 win, 3 losses, 1 win, 3 losses, going back to even outside of conference play. I can understand against Purdue Fort Wayne and Cleveland State. Purdue Fort Wayne, by the way, who just recently had their 16, 17 game winning streak cut by Cleveland State. I could understand those games being rough. But you score 49 against Milwaukee at home? Milwaukee is last place. I looked on the Horizon League website and they were so low on it that they didn't even appear on the home page of the standings. I had to go and look into the standings tab to get all 11 teams. They weren't even on the graphic. They've been in last place all season. And I mean, when we were on the road, they took us to overtime. And now 61-49 was the final score against that. It's a total bummer. It is a total bummer how the season started and now how it's going. And, man, I'll take another look at the standings. Oakland's dropped 1 spot to 6th place after dropping 2 spots previously when they were in the 4th spot. Because remember, a couple weeks ago when we beat Detroit at Detroit in a almost blowout fashion, it got close at some points, but in an ass-kicking fashion, we were in 4th place. And we've dropped 3 spots since then, from 4th to 7th place with a 6-10 conference record. You throw your hands up. I don't have the statistics like I do for men's basketball for the projected standings, but I mean, it's not impossible to get the 4th place spot, but because Northern Kentucky, they have it at 7-8, Detroit is 7-9, and then you're 6-10. It's not impossible. Especially when you got Wright State and Youngstown State coming up as the current 9th and 10th place teams, but you lost to the 11th place team, so I can't describe those as gimmies. It's just a total bummer when you got two of the best scorers in the league, especially Skorupski. I mean, I think she's got to be locked in for first team All Horizon League. She's awesome. Macy Smith has been a great partner in crime as well. A lot of the offense for Oakland, but just no one else has really been there to pick up the tab. Madison World Davis been doing a lot of the rebounding work, but it's no one else going on. Danny Graham does well. Liana Baxter chips in as well, but it's just, what am I supposed to say when you score 51 points in your past 3 games on another 3-game losing streak? It's a total bummer, man. Reviewing the whole season story, you do whatever in non-conference, and then right before a lot of the conference play starts, you lose your head coach to the same unfortunate back situation that's taken him out in years before, and then you start out 4-0 in league play, and you think, could this be the juice? Could it be something unlocked? I mean, nothing to say against Coach Tunget, but just being able to respond to that kind of adversity. Could this team be destined for at least a top 4 spot? No, probably not. And that sucks. The only saving grace so far for Oakland is that the top 3 of the league is so top heavy that it leaves everybody else below with room to snatch that 4th spot. You go from 7-8 at the 4th place spot to 12 wins at the 3rd place spot to 15-16 at the following 2 spots. It's very top heavy. So there is room for that 4th place spot for that bye and home Horizon League tournament game, but It's not looking good right now. I wish I had good news. I love sharing good news with you, but none to share for women's basketball so far. Their upcoming games, they'll be at Wright State on Wednesday, and then they will be at home against Youngstown State on Saturday. Two of the bottom three teams in the league. Gotta make these count. There's room for the fourth place spot. We gotta get it done, and we gotta get it done. So good to say it twice. So that will wrap up the women's basketball portion of the GioMoShow. Final segment will be our shoutouts. Swim and Dive will be competing in the Horizon League Championships over this next week, where this is what it's all about. You guys know, and you've heard me talk about my experience in swimming and talking to a lot of the swimmers. Like that, nothing else matters except this Horizon League tournament. There is a 45 plus year win streak of conference meets for the men's team and a 30 plus year conference win streak for the women on the line every year. No different this year. And I got full confidence that our swim and dive team is going to be able to get it done. But at least for the men's side, I can't quite speak for the women's side, but I've heard from interviewing the coach and some of the former swimmers, the past few years, it's been getting close. And it's been coming down to the final relay. So it's not a gimme, and these are not easy to get. But Horizon League Championships in Indianapolis starts this Wednesday, continuing into Saturday. And by the time we talk next, we're hoping to deliver another piece of great news that the Oakland University Swim and Dive team are champions of the Horizon League once again. So a good luck to the swimmers this week in Indianapolis. Baseball season has started this past week, opening with a 4-game series against Jacksonville State, where Oakland won one of the 4 games played. And the preseason poll came out, putting Oakland at 3rd place, underneath the typical 1st place of Wright State, and the reigning champion in the 2nd place of Northern Kentucky for the beginning standings. And this season will be the first without Jordan Banfield, as he went over to, I believe, California. I can't remember where he went. Somewhere in the West Coast. But without Jordan Banfield, who took Oakland previously to 2 conference championship games, losing both of them, unfortunately, to Wright State, and then lost early in last year's Horizon League tournament, one to Youngstown, and then I think to the eventual champion, Northern Kentucky. Maybe the order is different, but either way, that is what Oakland's coming into this baseball season with, and they'll be facing McNeese State University as part of their warm weather travels to get their non-conference ball in. And our final shout-out goes to the track team, where 3 meets they competed in over this past week. The Boston University David Henry Valentine Invitational in Boston, Massachusetts, the Tiffin University Robinson Family Open in Tiffin, Ohio, and the GVSU Big Meet in Allendale, Michigan. They were competing in all 3 of them. And the highlight from there is Yami Albright setting a school record for the 1 mile. That's a competitive record, okay? The 1 mile is a very competitive record in any school, in any event. There's a lot of people going for the best 1 mile time in school history, and Yami got it 4:01.37. Think about that and compare it to your personal mile time. My best was in 7th grade at 6:32. He did it in 4:01. That is just bananas to me. So congratulations for another school record for Yami Albright, and Oakland will be back in action one last time before their Horizon League Championships begin for the indoor season. They'll be heading to Saginaw and Ann Arbor this next weekend for another pair of meets to get ready and to sharpen the swords before they do battle for the Horizon League Indoor Championships. So, that concludes our shoutouts, and that concludes the GioMoShow here, as we are running out of time on the storage of my camera here. So be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the GioMoShow on all audio platforms, brought to you by WXOU, and also right here on YouTube. A subscription would be much appreciated to get your weekly coverage of the Golden Grizzlies, and keep an eye out for the game reviews with a very special guest Hopefully we can get that interview scheduled this week before they play on Friday for men's basketball. And you can tune in next week to see how Oakland will do in their final push for Horizon League greatness. They got two good teams coming up, Friday against Purdue Fort Wayne and Sunday against Cleveland State. That is what's on the line for Oakland to try and close out the regular season. And you can also tune in for women's basketball. We'll see how they do against Wright State and Youngstown State with updates on the previous teams mentioned, track, baseball, and swim. And with all that being said, and with all that recapped and teased, we wish you a great week. My name is GioMoShow, host of the Joe Mo Show, and we'll see you next week.